Pegase Express is a Gerstlauer roller coaster at Parc Asterix. The ride features a twisted out and back layout with a lift hill, multiple launches, and even a backwards segment. All of this makes it arguably France's best family coaster, and I will explain why in this review. In late 2015, Parc Asterix sent out a survey on 3 prospective new rides. The first was a highly themed Egyptian topspin. The second was a Norse-themed B&M flyer. The third was a Greek-themed Gerstlauer family coaster. The latter won out, and I think this was the right choice. The park had recently added a high thrill coaster in 2012 with Osiris, and the park was in need of another family coaster. The coaster would have a lot of similarities to Firechaser Express at Dollywood. That was, and still is, widely considered to be one of the world's best family coasters. So it's no surprise another park would want a comparable ride. Pegase Express opened in 2017, and staying true to the survey, it was placed in the Greece section of the park. The ride is themed to a transportation service powered by the mythical Pegasus, and I love what they did with the station. The exterior is themed to a classical ornate train station. This includes some fancy decor like a giant clock and a golden Pegasus statue. The indoor queue continues the theme with all sorts of informational boards and posters, all related to travel, and this continues all the way to the load platform. The layout has a few themed items. The far end is a giant billboard that you pierce right on through. Then the middle is a brief show scene in the Temple of Medusa, but more on that later. A majority of the layout is unthemed, but it looks good. The teal track still looks fresh to this day, and the placement was brilliant. The far end runs alongside the parking lot. Seeing trainloads of happy riders cycling by gets you amped for your day. Then you get some great views of this ride from the River Rapids ride, and also from this coaster's outdoor queue. There's a splashdown effect towards the end of the ride, and you can usually see multiple trains in motion at once. This is because Parc Asterix is some of the fastest ride crews on the planet. They waste no time getting trains dispatched. This coaster has 4 trains, but I believe the 4th is for maintenance purposes only. They regularly operate this ride with 3 trains. Each train holds 20 riders, as there are 10 rows of 2. Assuming a train is dispatched every minute, and it usually is, this ride is capable of 1,200 riders per hour, which is an impressive figure. This coaster still generates sizable waits though. Parc Asterix draws high crowds, and this is the park's premier family coaster. The wait is often 30 minutes minimum, and do not be surprised if it hits the hour mark, especially if you're visiting from summer onwards. What are the best ways to avoid a long wait with this coaster? Besides visiting on a quiet day, there are 4 ways. 1. Make this your very first stop of the day. This only works if you're at the front of the rope drop crowd, because this is one of the closest coasters to the main entrance. A lot of families will head here first. If you have early entry with the hotel, this works even better because this ride has been included in the past, and this is a great way to get a few quick laps in. 2. The queue sometimes dips briefly in the early afternoon once guests have made it deeper into the park, but you have to get lucky with this one. Once people see it as posted as a short wait in the app, people typically head back over there, and the line spikes once again. 3. Head here during the last hour. Even on busy days, the wait is often just 10 to 15 minutes by this point. 4. Utilize the Flautomatic Skip the Line service. This ride is available both as a single shot for €10 or on the all-day options. This even includes the lowest tier that costs just €20. This brings you directly to the station, often boarding the next train, so it saves a lot of time. Once you're at the end of the queue, an attendant will assign you a row. Sometimes they will take row requests, other times they will not. It depends on the employee. Fortunately, there is not a bad seat on this coaster. In fact, the forces are fairly similar across the train, so it doesn't matter much to me where I ride. Once seated, riders are restrained by an L-shaped lap bar. These are comfortable. However, there is not much legroom outside of row 1. Keep that in mind if you're on the taller side. Your feet may be squished in there. Once checked, you have a launch directly out of the station. While this tire-driven launch only has modest speed, it has okay power. It'll push you back into your seat a bit. This leads to an undulating spiral. Not much power here, but I like how it drops you down to the ground. This ride uses the train fairly well. You then twist into a brake run and decelerate, but don't worry, that is just the warm-up. There is still a lot to come. This leads to the ride's lone lift hill, which stands a magical 69 feet, or 21 meters tall. At the top, you have a railroad crossing sign and siren. You then subtly turn left and have a decent-sized straight drop. No airtime though. And on that note, you will not get any negative Gs anywhere in this coaster. I was surprised by this in my first rides given how that's a big component of Firechaser Express. The hills feel more like the ones on Big Bear Mountain, where you come close to getting airtime, but not quite. But the coaster moves through the layout at a good clip, so you don't lag or get bored. The pacing works for this ride. The drop is followed by a camelback. The best part about this hill is if the preceding train is navigating the backwards bit adjacent to you. It is a fun visual akin to a dueling coaster, because of how close the tracks are. Next is an S-hill. This begins the twisty part of the layout. And I like how the pullout dives into a shed with some really tight clearances. This leads to another S-hill. This one has some really good whip. It is one of my favorite hills in the ride. The following bunny hill is much milder, but the pullout once again has another good head chopper, this time with a later piece of track. The far turnaround is another great moment. The snap into the turn has nice whip. Then the pullout has two things going for it. One, there's that aforementioned billboard that creates another good head chopper. Two, it has decent positive Gs, the best anywhere in the ride. This leads to another S-hill. It has some mild whip, but not as much as the prior one. You then twist into a booster lift. You have enough momentum to make it up most of the lift on your own, but the tires propel you up the last bit, right into Medusa's temple. The inside has some classical stone architecture. It looks really good. In front of you is a Medusa statue. Then some projection mapping effects start. Her face gets menacing as her eyes turn red and snakes sprout outwards. This looks great. As the snakes lunge towards you, you blast backwards. This has respectable power. Again, not overly fast, but you have enough punch. But the most shocking part of this sequence is what happens the split second before you launch. The ceiling sprays water at the train, not enough to soak you, but your upper body will definitely get a little damp. While this occurred, a switch track moved into place to move you to the final section of the ride. This part begins with a curved drop downwards that has a wonderful twist into it. It is particularly nice in the natural front row because you are yanked downwards. Then there are a series of low S-bends. These move the train back and forth. You get some enjoyable lateral shakes, especially because you cannot see the directional changes coming due to that backwards motion, so it makes it more extreme than it really is. You then back into the final brake run and come to a stop. After the next train launches from the station, another switch track moves into place and you return to the station, ending the 3,045 foot or 928 meter long experience. That is a lot of track for a family coaster. In terms of smoothness, I am pleased to say this ride is extremely smooth. Gerstlauer can be hit or miss in this area, but their family coasters usually track well, and this one is no different. So what would I rate Pegase Express? I would give this coaster an 8 out of 10. This is a great family coaster. It's a dynamic experience that may not be super forceful, but there are some nice S-hills and twists that can throw you around a bit in a good way. I particularly like that backwards section at the end. Then this is paired with 2 enjoyable launches and some bits of theming that definitely add to the experience. The one con for me is the lack of airtime, but the coaster still works without it. That would have just been icing on the cake. This is arguably the best family coaster in all of France. The coaster is not too intimidating for those with milder tastes, but the movements and backwards section offer enough thrills for those with wilder tastes. And one other important aspect with this family coaster is the super low height limit. Riders need to be just 39 inches or 100 centimeters tall to ride. I would have loved to have a coaster this quality with a height limit that low growing up. Now I do prefer Big Thunder Mountain at the nearby Disneyland Paris when it comes to French family coasters, but Pegase Express is still a really good coaster. Of the Gerstlauer family coasters, I prefer Firechaser Express, but there is not another one I would take over this one. So those are my thoughts on Pegase Express at Parc Asterix. What are your thoughts on this coaster? Do you think it's France's best family coaster? Let me know down in the comments. If you enjoyed this review, I would appreciate it if you gave this video a like, and you consider subscribing, because there'll be a lot more roller coaster amusement park videos here at Canopy Coaster. Thanks for watching.